Yesterday, where Johnny Depp succeeded on all three of his claims of defamation against Amber Heard. Amber Heard only winning on one of her three counterclaims against Johnny Depp. A lot of people have questions about the interviews that Elaine Bredehoft did this morning, Amber Heard's attorney. Let's play some of that for you and we'll break it down on the other side.
Does your client want to appeal?
Oh, absolutely. And she has some excellent grounds for it. We even had tried to get the UK judgment in to dismiss his case because he already had his shot. And that's one of the issues, but also a number of the evidentiary issues. There was so much evidence that did not come in.
Is she able to pay a $10.4 million judgment?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
In closing arguments, Amber's team argued that this would send a message, that it would send a message that no matter what you do as an abuse victim, you always have to do more. You need to be perfect in order for people to believe you if she did not get a favorable verdict. What message do you think this sends?
It's a horrible message. It's, as I said, a setback. It's a significant setback because that's exactly what it means. Unless you pull out your phone and you video your spouse or your significant other beating you, effectively, you won't be believed.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of comments about this. Marie, I'll go to you. We have a question from Facebook from Leah Wiltsey. Elaine Bredehoft, in an interview with the Today Show, was claiming that the jury was swayed by social media during their breaks from court. How can she make this claim? She also heavily referenced the UK trial and mountains of evidence that couldn't come in, along with verbally saying what some of it was. Is she allowed to describe evidence that wasn't allowed in this case?
She's allowed to say what she wants to, but it has to make sense. The UK trial was by a 71-year-old judge. He was the trier of fact. The UK has different laws that control their legal system, so I don't understand how, as an intelligent attorney, she's comparing the two. She needs to respect the process, trust what the jury came to, even if she didn't like it. She needs to stop hating, be a little more professional, and maybe next time prepare her client in a more believable way instead of bringing on someone who's claiming injuries that don't match at all what her testimony is, and work on her hearsay objections. Elaine, thank you.
and Jeanette, we have somebody on Twitter at Snowtar Fran. Elaine said this AM during an interview that a mountain of evidence was withheld. How is that possible?
You know, I don't know about a so-called mountain of evidence. She cited a couple of things, including some type of therapy or medical records going back, she claimed, to 2012. I felt like we heard a lot about that. We heard about that in Dr. Laurel Anderson's testimony. We heard things about some types of therapy records that were referenced. I mean, I don't know if you remember that, Jesse, but I remember hearing about these therapy records a little bit. Maybe we didn't see every little piece of them. Yeah. And then she also talked about the Stephen Deuters text message after the Boston plane flight incident, the 2014 thing, where I think Stephen Deuters said in the text message something like, when I told him he kicked you, he started crying, or something to that effect. And I think we've seen that text message floating around. And I thought that something related to that came up, but I don't want to say that definitively because I just don't recall. But I felt like it was a lot. There was a lot out there. I mean, think about the text messages we saw. Think about the audio recordings we saw or listened to and heard. Amber Heard was on the stand herself telling her story, not once, but twice. Yeah. And then she was cross-examined, just as Johnny Depp was, twice. So the jury looked at all of the evidence. They sat there for 6 weeks, and we watched as they took notes. And then they asked one question, and they deliberated for 13 or so hours before they came to a decision.
Nafeez, we're seeing a lot of people having questions about the aftermath of this. So a lot of people obviously have opinions on Elaine Bredehoft's comments, but they're also having questions about Amber Heard's statement. So we have a question from Danielle Bethel on YouTube. Can Amber face more charges for basically defaming him again, meaning Johnny Depp, in her statement after the verdict? I've been watching since day one, And it didn't surprise me that she made this statement. And again, for anybody who's just following us, you know, Amber Heard did release a statement that said, "The disappointment I feel today is beyond words. I'm heartbroken that the mountain of evidence still was not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my ex-husband." She goes on to say later on that I believe Johnny's attorney succeeded in getting the jury to overlook the key issue of freedom of speech and ignore evidence that was so conclusive that we won in the UK. So again, the question to you, Nafeez, from Daniel Bethel is, can Amber face more charges for allegedly defaming Johnny Depp again in this statement?
That's a really interesting question, and I think that's definitely something that Depp's attorneys should look into, although I don't think he would want to pursue something like that again, because he has made his point in this 6-week-long very, very, very highly viewed trial, which has not only won legally, but also won the court of public opinion. You know, as to whether she can be sued for defamation related to those statements, what she might be protected by is that many states have laws protecting what you say in the course of litigation. So I believe she can argue that because she was speaking about the verdict and, you know, it was related to the litigation, in the same way that she would be protected for whatever statements she made in court or, you know, during the trial as to her innocence and the truth of her claims. She might be protected by that. But Virginia law might have a way for Depp's attorneys to legally pursue defamation of her again because the verdict was made. The jury has deliberated. So I really don't think, though, it's in his best interest to pursue that.
Well, Marie, we have another question here that, you know, it's an interesting one. This is actually from one of our UK followers. So we have I love our international audience. The question is from Twitter, @Belinda538-42194. I hope that it is an important code for you, Belinda, and not that you fell asleep on your keyboard when you were writing this. But the question is, Marie, has Johnny now got any recourse for redress in the UK trial? Especially as Elaine is still using this judgment as a defense. As a Brit, I feel strongly that our justice system owes him big time.
I don't think that Johnny is going back to the UK to try to appeal anything. I think he's made his point, and in the court of public opinion in America, where he is from, people believe him, and I think his reputation is slowly coming to terms with who he wants America to see him as, and he's not going to waste any more time and money on litigating this issue because it's been settled already. He wasn't an abuser. Her defense of truthfulness failed, and that's that. So now he's just going to focus on rebuilding his career and never mind what happened in the UK.
Yeah, and this is an interesting question, Nafeez, from Stranger on YouTube. Stranger on YouTube. That's not an alarming name at all. But anyway, Nafeez, the question is, can Amber appeal without any evidence that the jury was wrong?
So the way she would actually have grounds to appeal is if she can somehow show, for example, that one of the judge's decisions or instructions wasn't fair, that something happened during the trial that was unfair to her, that Depp's attorneys did something that was unfair, or that maybe the jury didn't follow jury instructions to the T, something like that. But she can't really attack the jury in the way that her attorney was publicly doing this morning. That's actually the first time I've heard of a lawyer actually attack the jury and them of using social media after the verdict also. If this was really a concern to her, she had 6 weeks to raise this issue with the judge, and she didn't, which I think is very telling.
Well, it's interesting you say that because Ann Jeanette, now here's the second question we have from Lenny Van Horn on YouTube. Do you think Johnny Depp's lawyers are going to do rebuttal interviews themselves?
You know, I think we'll have to wait and see. They weren't on any of the big three news networks today, you know, the NBC, ABC, CBS. Also, you know, keep in mind today it was the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, the beginning of it in the UK. So a lot of the news coverage was taken up with that, although there was coverage about the Depp case and the verdict. So, you know, hopefully we'll get to hear from them at some point. I know we'd love to hear from them. And so hopefully we will hear from them. They gave a brief statement yesterday, probably just because they probably felt that was just the most appropriate thing to do, I would assume.
Yeah, and look, you know, it's a situation where I wouldn't be surprised that Amber Heard's team is immediately coming out on the defensive, trying to defend what happened here, but you also can give Johnny Depp's side a little bit of time. They're in celebration mode. Now, we're going to take, I'm not sure if we can take one more question. Maybe I can get one more question in before we take a break. If so, yeah, let's do one more question. Marie, I'll go to you. This is from Ali Hamden on YouTube. This is a question from the Netherlands. I'm throwing all of my international questions to you, Marie. Why did the jury decide on not awarding Johnny the full $50 million?
Maybe they felt that his damages did not amount to $50 million. Maybe they felt that he had something to do with the decrease in his popularity too, prior to her filing this op-ed in the Washington Post. He too was not a saint. He was showing up drunk at award dinners. There were a lot of negative press articles about him, and maybe they just played it very fair. She defamed you, but not to the amount of 50 mil, because your behavior at times was very deplorable as per your admissions on the stand. So you have to take some accountability for that too. They did it right.
The only concern that I have is the fact that they didn't put that numbers down on the form initially. Makes me wonder, did they just rush back and said, all right, 10 million seems good, 2 million seems good, 5 million. I hope they gave it some thought, that they actually decided this before they came back and maybe just didn't write it on the sheet. I'm hoping that was the answer, but hey, listen, if they actually do sit down maybe with us here on Law and Crime, we'll ask that question. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to take more of your questions.